So right now we don't have the route set. So let's just go ahead and set that route. So back in our header, if we go here, we're just gonna copy this about link and paste it in, link to, and this is just gonna be new dash post. Create post. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it in the footer. This is a great example of when, because we are repeating the code, this is when you should not. You should have these LIs stored in one file and then pulling them in that file into the footer and then into the header. We'll just consider that an above and beyond task for you to do. So take these list items, put them in their own separate file somewhere where you can use them, probably in the library, call it menu, for example, and then pull in the menu for both the header and footer so you dynamically load the same data so you don't have to change it twice like I just did. As you can imagine, if you have a 100-page application and you are loading these links, the same exact links up in 50 different places, if you want to make a change, you have to make it in all 50 places. Not a good strategy for scaling. So whenever you duplicate data, you're writing the same thing, try to keep it in one place and then just import it in. Okay. All right, so now we have this new post route. It doesn't do anything because the route doesn't exist. So we're going to go into our index within our main, and we're going to go ahead and add that route. So this route is going to be right above about. We'll say route path is equal to slash post, slash new post, and the component is going to be equal to new post. Okay, so where's it going to get new post from? So import new post from pages slash new post. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save that. It's probably going to error because that doesn't exist. New post.js. Okay. Import React from React const new post is equal to an anonymous function. And we'll just say div new post. Export default new post. Go ahead and save that. And there we go, we're on the new post page. All right, let me just add some quick styles from my copy paste skills. Bam, okay. Okay, so on this new post page, the first thing we want to do is we want to put a nice form in here to create a new post. I'm going to go over to materialize, forms, and we'll go ahead and copy this first one right here, then we'll edit it to our likings. Okay, so okay, so obviously we got to change all the classes to class name. Now one thing you will notice, you're still getting these errors, and the reason why is because, so the reason why is because these inputs, they're not self-closing, because in typical HTML they don't need to be. They'll automatically self-close with HTML5, but in React, in JSX I should say, they need to be self-closing. So in all of our inputs tags, just go ahead and do Command D on my Mac to select them all. And then we're going to go over to the end and self-close them. Like that, and then all the errors go away. And now we have a crappy looking form. Okay, so now let's get rid of all the stuff we don't need. And also, the way they do their forms, they use JavaScript to do these nice little float ups. They look really nice, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to have to import that and do all that fancy stuff. So I'm just going to get rid of these. The way they do it is with these labels. So we're just going to get rid of the labels so we don't have this overwriting, confusing, hard to read stuff. So I'm going to get rid of all the labels. Okay. Now we only need the title and the post. So we'll take out this row and this row. Save it, see what we're at. Okay. We actually have an extra row in there too. Save it. And we still got that. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and just say close out that row, div class name equals row, like so. And we're going to name placeholder, it's going to be title. And we're going to change it from 6 columns to 12 columns. Change the ID to title, and we don't actually need this validate class name. We will not be doing validation with materialize at this point. Get rid of the class names. Again, make this 12. And the ID, this is just going to be the body, right? And this is actually going to be a text area field. We don't need to define the text, but one thing that is different from React, I mean, I can show you right here. We'll just say slash text area. And if we put content in here, we say like, this is the body. Okay. And I'm going to put the placeholder is equal to enter the post. Okay. The title, change this to title. Post title. Okay, we'll save this. You'll notice you'll get this warning. Use the default value or value props instead of setting children on text area. So it's pretty simple. Instead of putting in text between two text areas, you just put the text into here, into a value tag. You'll see that come up in just a second. Okay, so notice that this is actually not styled how we want it to, and that is because you have to add a specific class to text areas. I believe it's in here. Where's that? Text area. Yeah, you have to get the class materialize text area. Not sure why they didn't just style the text area tag, but whatever. Okay, so now we have a decent looking form. Let's take a look at what it should be looking like to get a good comparison. Okay, now that's edit post. Okay, so last thing we just need this button. I was gonna do where typical where you hit enter and it submits, but text areas, if you hit enter, it does a new line, which is kind of necessary. So we're gonna put a button that will submit it so that we can get around that. So let's see, where we go. We're just gonna do another div row, and we're gonna put a input field call s12. That's just using Emmet shortcuts, by the way. So within this new row that is fully spread across, we're going to put a button with a class name equal to btn. And the type of button, this button is going to be a submit button. Which actually I don't think it's necessary to put the type of submit within a form, because by default a button will submit a form. And then we'll just put the text create post, like so. Okay, cool. So now it looks how it's supposed to look. So there's a few problems. One, we don't want this to work how a normal form would work. If we hit create post, it's gonna basically submit the form and it's gonna load a whole new URL. We almost never want the page to refresh like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop the submitting from doing a normal submit, I guess you would say. And we're going to say, so on the form tag, we're going to say on submit equals to, and we're just going to call a function called submit post, and then I think that's all we got to do. Yeah, submit post. And so now we need a function called submit post. Oops. And so the submit post, whenever you run it on submit, it'll pass through the event that is being ran. So in this case, we can do e.prevent default, just like that. And that will stop the default submit action from happening. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to tell our form, instead of submitting to the normal submit HTML method, we want to actually update our database, or in this case our just our object. We want to update it with a new post, right? I got lost. Here it is. So what we need to do is we need a way to get the title and the body text areas. So back, if you ever use jQuery or JavaScript, at this point you would have to search for the DOM and then get the element and then get the value of it in order to pass it. With React, it's a little bit different. So you want to use state in order to do this properly. So again, we're gonna import the component, and we're gonna say class new post. We're gonna convert this over to a regular component, extends component bracket, and this is just going to be the render method, which is returning this, and we're going to scoot this over. Okay, put a couple brackets there. Cool. So we need to set the state. All right, so you can actually do something like this dot state. You can set the state outside of constructor, and this works fine. So I say this dot, sorry, no, we don't even need to use this. We just say state is equal to this object. And we're going to define an empty state. So we're going to say title is an empty string, and we're going to say body is an empty string. Now what we want to do is we want to set the value of these fields to the state. So we'll say value is equal to this dot state dot title. And this is going to, this refers to the component that it's in, and then you say the state, and then you say the title. So whatever this is going to be this. And you can do the same for the text area. We say value is equal to this dot state dot body. Okay, go ahead and save that. And there's going to be some things wrong, and we'll kind of tackle that next. So now, no matter what we type, the state's not changing. So we're basically saying this value is always equal to an empty string defined in the state. So now what we need to do is we need to define onChange functions. So whenever a change happens to this file, we need to update, or this input, we need to update the state. So on this first one, we're going to do onChange is equal to, and this is going to reference a function within the class. So actually, before we do that real quick, I'm going to move this function within the class as well, make it a class function like so, just because this submit post is not going to be used anywhere else on the app except for this new post class. So I want it within the class. So where we said on submit post, we now have to change it to this. So now it's a class function or class method. Okay, and it should work exactly the same. So anyway, so on change, we have on submit for the form, but when the input changes, we want to create or run a function called, we want to update the field. Okay, and we want to do this. Oops. This dot update field. Okay, so now we need to go create the class method called update field. Again, we're going to pass in the event, which is just the letter E, and we'll say e.prevent default. Actually, I don't know why I just did that. So what we're going to do is whenever there is a new field, it's not really an event, it's more like the field that's getting passed through. We're going to say this dot set state, and we're going to set the state. how do we select which one? Because we want to be able to use this function with this as well as this. So we want to be able to set the state of title with this one, and we want to be able to set the state of the body for this one. So what you can do is you can actually access the field. If we actually do a debugger here, it'll be kind of useful to see what you have access to. So whenever an input on change function is fired, so just type in A, we're going to be in the debugger now. You can see this field is equal to this. So you can go into the field, into the target, and then you can see, well, actually it's a little tricky with these. These are synthetic events. It's a proxy. So it's kind of hard to see in the debugger. I forget how to do exactly it, but just know that you can do field.target.id. So we'll actually just do a console.log that, and then we'll do a debugger. Let's do a refresh here. So A, so you can see the title, and this title is coming from this input ID. Let me turn on, I don't know why it takes this off every time, word wrap. Okay, so I have ID is equal to title, and that's what is coming through in field.target.id. Okay, great. So we need to set that, we need to set the title. So we're going to use the bracket syntax, field target, and we're going to set it to the field.target.value, which is whatever we type in there. Okay, put a comma, and we're going to close. Oh, sorry, this should be in the set state function, like so. Okay, and that's all we're going to do. Now we're going to get an error, and I'm going to explain to you why we're going to get an error. In theory, this should work, but there's one small problem. So it says, cannot read property set state of undefined. What? So remember in our post, this component did mount, you have access to this. Right now it's saying you don't. You're saying this is undefined. It's saying cannot read set state of undefined. So this is now undefined. But why does component did mount have access to it? Well, because this is a React function that is what is called bound to this class. They pre-bound it. Whenever you create a class function, you have to bind it to the state unless it is a React lifecycle function. So in order to bind update field to the class so that it has access to this, we have to bind it within the constructor lifecycle method. This is probably one of the hardest hurdles to get over when learning React, and I know it took me a while, but once I understood it, it's actually very native to how JavaScript classes work, and so it'll really help you out with JavaScript applications as a whole if you understand about binding. So it's definitely a hump to get over, or a hurdle to get over, whatever you want to call it. But this is what you got to do. You got to bind your class functions to the class. Otherwise, they won't have access to anything else within the class. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to do a constructor. It's called the super. And then we're going to do this.update field is equal to this.update field.bind this. And that'll make sure that update field has access to this. We save it. And now it works just fine. And if you look in the React plugin, you can see if you go to the new post, in the state we have the title, and now it's changing when our title changes. Great. All right, so now let's add this function to our body. Let's see what would be a good place. We'll do. It's always a struggle finding out where things go. OnChange is equal to this.update field. Gotta make sure the ID body is equal to the state body. Yep. All right, so now the body should work. A, B, C, D, E, F, and if we look in the new post, we can see they are loading in and they are updating as we update. Perfect. So now what we can do is we can then submit that post. Okay, so by submitting it, all we're going to be doing is just overwriting our file temporarily, and we're just going to be adding an additional what are these called? Just going to be adding an additional key, an additional property to your post. So if you are using an API, this is going to be different for you. But again, I don't want to get into the complexities of that at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to say post, which is loading, which we haven't loaded in yet. So we're going to import post from post sample. Okay. So now we're going to say post, and we're going to give it, we got to give it a new ID. So this is where a backend server API would come in handy with generating these IDs, or however you want to generate your posts. But for now, we're just going to give it a fake ID, or an ID that's not really, it doesn't matter at this point. So we're just going to say new ID, or new post, like so. Okay, and we're going to say equals to this.state. So again, this should be a unique ID that's passed through. Just for the time being, for this tutorial, we're just going to pass in just a random string that's going to be the same time every time you do a new post, and it would eventually give you errors. So you need a way to generate a random string right here. You can actually use random string generators. I believe it's UUID. You can just install it, and then you can use it to create randomly generated IDs. But again, this is where backend API or service comes in handy. Okay, so we're going to say the new post, or we're going to add a new object, and we're going to set it equal to whatever the state is, which is a new post. All right, after we do that, okay, well, let's just make sure this works. So we're saying like ABC, DEF, create post. We're actually getting an error. It says cannot read property state of undefined. Again, this is undefined because it is not bound to the class. So we're going to bind that method to the class. Just like that. Okay, refresh the page. ABC, DEF, create post. It worked. It may not look like it, but if you go to the home page, you can see your post right there. And you can go to it and everything. Because this is local, if I refresh, and it's gone. Unless you get an API or a database or a backend service, that's what's going to happen. So if we go to create post again, now we need some kind of user feedback that this worked. So the easiest feedback is just to forward you back to the home page, and you'll see your new post there, right? So we're going to do this. We're going to access this again. We're going to access the props. And within the props, if you remember, you can actually look. Let me zoom that in for you real quick. So if you look in the props, you have access to something called history. And within the history, which is part of the React router, you can then call the push function. The push function is basically how you go to another page. So if you say props.history.push, and then you just push the home route, like so. You save that. Let me zoom back out. Okay. So now if you say new post, this is my new post, create post, and go to the bottom and you can see the new post. Obviously you would want to rearrange these in descending order. We're not going to go over that, but that is how you would add a new post. Okay, so now all we got left to do is edit the post and then delete the post.